Well, hello everybody. I am excited, if you haven't already noticed, I am excited to talk about this subject for the next several videos. The relationship that I have with the Lord, my relationship with Him, has been one of the most meaningful things in my life, one of the most meaningful relationships all of my life. By the time you get very old, if you've had a lot of different types of relationships in your life, and I quickly began to realize that the Lord was for me. He was for my good. I could trust Him. Scripture says that God is not a man that He should lie. You begin to realize that people aren't always giving you full disclosure. They're not always truthful with you. They sometimes don't even know the truth about themselves, and so they can't give you the truth about themselves either. And you have a lot of different kinds of encounters and experiences in this life with a lot of different personalities. But I realized how consistent God was, how certain He was, and that He was not going anywhere. He was not capricious. He wasn't changing. He wasn't moody. And so I just really appreciate who He is. I appreciate who He's been in my life, and the change, His presence in my life. I appreciate the effect that it's had on me, just being in His company, being around His thoughts, taking what He says to me and letting it get inside my heart and in my life has made such an incredible impact on the person that I have become and the person that I am becoming every day that I am with Him. So I'm very excited to talk about my top 5 revelations of God, the top 5 things about Himself that He has revealed to me. One of the top ways that I'm going to get into today is that He revealed to me that He was my creator and my designer. A lot of times you might think, well, yeah, if you are a believer in creation, yeah, he created you. But there's something about it when He reveals to you personally that He was your creator and your designer before your life came to being. Over time, of course, as He's whispered to my soul, I began to realize how personal this really was, and is personal for you too. So in Psalm 139, let's just go to Scripture. There's a lot of ways the Lord reveals Himself to you. He can reveal Himself through nature, through music, through movies, through experiences, through the world around you. He can reveal Himself to you through timely words from other people that stick out to you, that are highlighted to you, and you realize, wow, I need to take that into my life and build that into my life and who I am. That gets into my heart. But also He reveals Himself through Scripture. This is the best, safest way for us to know that we have the truth, is that when it lines up with Scripture. Scripture is God's holy word. So in Psalm 139, David was writing this psalm, and he was getting this revelation too. He was getting the revelation that God was his designer and his creator. About halfway down the chapter, it says, "For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb," which is an amazing thought. In the Amplified Translation, it says, "You knit my spirit, soul, and body together in my mother's womb." When you realize that God inside your mother's womb was putting you together, He was fashioning and shaping your very soul, your very body, and your very spirit. You also realize through that language, the language of Scripture is so revealing, that you are knit together. So that means like you're embroidered, which means that parts of your soul can affect your body can affect your spirit, and your spirit can affect them all. You are a 3-part being, and He knit you together in your mother's very womb. When I began to capture this idea, I realized I was not just one of the masses. I wasn't just a person in history. I wasn't just another being on this planet. I wasn't as insignificant insignificant. I wasn't just lost in a sea of people, and God was indifferent to me, and he had a lot of people to lead. How could I be important? I realized that he had knit me together, and so I was significant. I was significant and handpicked and hand-woven. I was his creation, and I was his personal design. He took a moment to do that. David, of course, his next reaction was, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. You begin to capture this and go, wow, this, my identity, my thumbprint, my footprint in history, in this world and in this life is significant, and it's significant to God. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. You know, God may have used your parents. He may have used my parents to conceive me, but he didn't. But he was very intentional about it. It was a very deliberate move on his part to bring my life into existence, and that's what David is saying here. He knew from the beginning of your time here on earth to the very last day that he wants you to live. He knows your times. He was very intentional about your existence and your birth on this planet. David said, you saw my unformed body. All the days of my life were ordained by you and written in your book before one of them had even come to be. As I began to realize that God had been so deliberate, had been so significant, of course my heart was filled with joy. I didn't struggle with insignificance. This revelation has been able to keep me out of a lot of darkness that tries to come in this life. It's also been able to set me straight in moments when I went back to it, and like a compass point that points north. It's been able to keep out darkness and to push it away when I was threatening to veer off, or I was tempted or alert, because there's a lot of opinions that arise about you as you grow older. A lot of attack from the enemy through people, through events. A lot of things just in your mind that he can speak when you're vulnerable or susceptible, and he can say and accuse a lot of things. He can bring a lot of feelings, a lot of negativity, and it comes in the form of darkness. It can have an effect on us and who we grow to be and who we are. And so a lot of feelings of insignificance can arise, and a lot of feeling like, and then you begin to try to compensate for that insignificance. You begin to adopt certain behaviors, certain negative behaviors, certain coping patterns to feel significant, to feel important. You can go through certain specific struggles because you don't know that you don't have a full revelation of how important you are to God. When you are going through life and you stop and you realize this has changed me. When you stop and you realize that God was an artist who designed you. Being an artistic person, that really resonates with me, that God enjoys and delights in seeing his creation. He sees you walking around. Just your existence brings him pleasure. Just the fact that he brought you to life and brought you into being, and there you are. He hand designed you. He hand designed, when you realize that he hand designed your physical body. You can't be so hard on yourself. Then you can't allow, the enemy is not able to make you feel so hard on yourself. It breaks these things in your life that do come against us, that come against our soul as women, as men, that he designed your body. He designed your intelligence. He designed your mind. He designed you just the way you are for his purposes, for his glory, for his plans, for his pleasure, and for your enjoyment, so that you can enjoy life and enjoy who you are. David, of course, he summed it up at the end. He was just blown away by this revelation. And he said, "How precious to me are your thoughts, God." He realized how precious this was and how much God had thought of him and how much detail God had put into him. "How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them." When you catch the revelation that God thought of you and he is thinking of you even now in your life, it becomes very personal. It becomes very intimate. And he becomes someone in your life that you want to know and that you enjoy being for him. It's just incredibly powerful when you realize you've been designed by God and that he thought you up and he was the creator who put you together. Another way that this specifically helped me was when I realized he had made me a woman. Growing up, just some of the experiences I had, some of the negative encounters I had, some of the thinking that I was surrounded by, I began to think it was a disadvantage to be a woman, that it was just a naturally harder world for me to live in, that there were more privileges to being a man, that just as you get older, you realize, wow, this just is so inconvenient. There's some major inconveniences to being a woman. There's, and this stinks. I began to really get disgruntled and struggle with it because of a series of events. I began to really struggle with it, and I just had a poor conception, a poor perception of being a woman and being feminine. But the Lord is the one who came and straightened out my thinking through some of this revelation, through his thinking, through his involvement in my life, through his whispers, his words, through his still small voice in my heart, through his love, and through these scriptures. I began to realize he was saying to me, "I made you a woman. I did it. I did it on purpose. I delight in it. I like it. I like your femininity. I like it. I like who you are. I like the way that I've made you." And he calls the works of his hands good. We see that in Genesis as he created the world. He said, "This is good." He likes. Now, some things in this world, you'll notice, some things have been perverted by sin and death. That when Adam failed in Genesis, we know that sin entered the world, that death entered the world. And so people are not necessarily born ideally physically the way that God, his very best, his very ideal. We see that some people grow and grow broken and aren't ideally the way that God created them to be. Also, the enemy can lure us away from our design and try to tempt us and lure us away from and create in us such a dissatisfaction that we don't want to be the design that God has created us to be, that the struggle is so difficult. He convinces us that the struggle of being a woman, being who we are, being at the intelligence level that we are, is such a struggle that we seek ways to not be ourselves. So it takes the Lord to sort some of those things out. You may have some questions after all of that. It takes the Lord answering you for your life and your design, for the home that you were born into, for the people he chose to use to conceive you. These are things that you have to take up with him and resolve with him in your heart. I'm just sharing with you my experience was that I needed to come into a revelation that he had created me a woman, that he enjoyed it and delighted in it, and I began to delight in his delight in me. I began to realize that this was a privilege and that it was a pleasure and that I got to enjoy I got a new satisfaction being who I was. I enjoyed a satisfaction that he had made me a woman. So you can see that it can stabilize you. Having a revelation of God can stabilize you. It can make you more sound. It can make you more certain and more confident in who you are. It can ward off a lot of accusation and feelings, heavy feelings of insignificance and other feelings that you always feel. Sometimes you begin to realize you feel different. You feel unique, and that makes you uniquely bad. But the Lord has made you unique and made you you, and that is uniquely good if you are a little different and a little unique, especially when you know for certain he's saying to your heart, I've made you that way. I've made you that way. I know it certainly has impacted and changed my life. It's restored me. It's kept me straight, and it's protected me in many, many moments throughout my life, knowing that God is my creator and my designer. So I hope this message was an encouragement to you. It is certainly, like I said, helped keep out a lot of confusion in my life. I hope you will join me for the next several videos and find out more about God and how he wants to reveal himself to you too.